Hi! Time for me to recap the first week of February 2026, give or take a day. So let's talk some stuff. First up, viewing. First movie I watched this past week was From Beyond by Stuart Gordon, which I remember seeing on the big screen in 1986. And I think I could say that it's probably my favorite Stuart Gordon movie, and it's a lot of fun. And it's got a lot of monsters, and it is also one of the oogiest, gooeyest movies too. They used a lot of slime. I think I don't know how much, but there was a lot. And I got the Vinegar Syndrome release, which has the film complete and uncut. But honestly, and there is even a disclaimer at the beginning talking about the sources, but my eyes couldn't tell. And I don't know what the theatrical cut runtime was. This cut is 86 minutes, so maybe it's 84 minutes or 85 minutes, because honestly, I really can't tell the difference of what was restored to this. The other movie I watched was Dario Argento's Phantom of the Opera, which I had gotten from Vinegar Syndrome also. And this was one that, again, I remember it being really bad. And I was like, could it be that bad? And the answer is yes and no. I did see earlier, not earlier this year, late last year, at some point, I had gotten the box set of Opera, which has like it's this ridiculous amount of stuff from Severin, and it makes a great double bill with the Phantom of the Opera, because he made this in about 1987, and it is, if you want a serious Phantom of the Opera movie from Dario Argento, this is probably the one that you would do. This is basically the serious one. This one is far more campy and overtly comedic. The problems with it, I think, are that Dario Argento and narrative cohesion have never had the best of relationships. He loves his dreamscape narratives and kind of like going for the dream logic vibe to his films. Although one of my favorite movies of his is Tenebrae, which is one of his most grounded and intricately plotted films. I mean, it has a cohesive narrative you can follow from point A to point B to point C to on down to the alphabet till the end of the movie. This movie, Phantom of the Opera, does not have a cohesive narrative. It doesn't have. All of the plot points are there, but the exposition or the depth of character that is needed to give them any kind of dramatic weight is missing. This is, again, just 100% visual. The script is kind of like secondary. And it has a couple of really impressive set pieces in it, but it also has some pretty overtly comedic set pieces in it. So there's a real oil and water vibe to the film. I'm not sorry that I put it in my collection. I would probably revisit it on occasion because, again, the set pieces were really great. And I thought it was funny that just before I started talking about the movies I was watching on Stuff of the Week, I watched Island of the Fishmen. And the cave, I recognized the cave that they used in this movie from Island of the Fishmen. I was like, hey, that's the same cave. That's where Island of the Fishmen was filmed. I'm reasonably certain. Again, I didn't do 100%, or actually a lot of research for this. This is more me just kind of like, off the top of my head. But again, I'm glad I saw it. The mileage varies. I mean, again, by this time, people were wondering if Dario Argento had lost his touch as a filmmaker. And this was one of the times when they were like, people were beginning to question whether or not he had ever been a good director. I don't know. He was never an actor's director, and he was never a plot-heavy director. It's mostly visuals and vibes with Argento. So I do think it has moments, but those moments don't add up to a satisfactory whole. It does have a great score by Ennio Morricone, though, and I do have that soundtrack. Okay, what's next? Reading. I am, according to my Kindle, I am 57% of the way through Necroscope to Vamphri. I hope to finish it soon. I'm really enjoying this one. There was a little bit of a issue I was having with it because I felt it was that the bad guy, the big bad in this book, whose name is Julian, was just kind of like a retread of Drago Asani from the first Necroscope, but that was in the first quarter or half of the book, and now there's been an escalation and expansion that there's a lot of new stuff that's happening that I'm really enjoying. So yeah, still enjoying it. I read 2 short stories, Scenicruiser and the Silver Lady by Peter S. Alterman, a review of which was posted on Wednesday. And that was the last short story from the June 1981 issue of The Twilight Zone. And I also read the first story in the Weird Women anthology, which was the Old Nurse's Story by Elizabeth Gaskell. And I have recorded a review of that, and it will go live next Wednesday. Okay, that was reading. Soundtracks. This was a nice little surprise. Entrada has a one of a kind section where odds and ends, bits and pieces of ephemera kind of like that come through their store that they only have one copy of will be sold. And I discovered that they had the soundtrack to Fear No Evil from 1981, I think it was. Yeah. This is the movie where Satan, or one of Satan's minions, is reborn and going to a high school, and 2 archangels come down to do battle with him. I think it's probably most famous or infamous for featuring the lethal dodgeball scene. But I'm glad that I got the soundtrack for it. I have the soundtrack for Frank LaLoggia's follow-up film, which was The Lady in White, which came out, I think, in 1988, 1987. But I'm glad to have this in my collection now. I did 2 puzzles, videos of which have been made and will be forthcoming. Uh, First puzzle, which will be the video of which will be going up on Monday, February 9th, is pieces from Messed Up Puzzles. This is one of the last of the Messed Up Puzzles that I have. There's a Darcy the Mail Girl one I'm thinking of getting, but they really haven't refreshed their stock for a while or released anything new. So I'm wondering if it's if they're withering on the vine. I don't know, or maybe they're just going through some financial issues. But I'm hoping that Messed Up Puzzles stays viable. They came out in 2020 during the pandemic, and they're still here. So, but I'm hoping that there'll be more. And the other one that I got, I did, was as a palette cleanser, was the 300 Dowdle Kittens, Knitten, Mittens, which at this moment might go up the following Monday. So Monday the 9th. So that would be the 16th, Monday the 16th. I don't know yet. More on that kind of thing later. Those are the 2 puzzles that I've done. I am going to be starting a 1,000 piece puzzle of Bron Castle from Romania, which is Dracula's castle, which is where we went in October and November of 2025. So I'm gonna put that together. Looking forward to that. There's a lot of fun memories there. And let's see, that's all of the viewing, reading, soundtracks, and puzzles. So let's go into the Wayback Machine with the newspaper ads and look at what I posted this week on either Ghoulies, Ghosties, and Long-Legged Beasties or the newspaper ad archive. So, February 2nd, in 1933, in the San Francisco Examiner, we have an ad for The Mummy. This is Boris Karloff's second iconic monster for Universal, and it's poised to shamble into San Francisco Bay Area theaters. Although the programmer-style sequels are pretty interchangeable retreads, I think they tell the exact same story over and over and over and over, beat for beat. This first movie is actually quite good. It's atmospheric, it's got a really interesting story, and Karloff, the Uncanny, gives a superlative and subtle performance as the titular mummy. So, if you haven't seen it, I recommend it. If you have seen it, you know I'm not lying. Also, February 2nd, but 1928, also the San Francisco Examiner, we have an ad here for Smart Set magazine. This appeared at the newspaper ad archive. And let's see, the Smart Set was a literary magazine. It ran from 1900 to 1930. And it fell victim to the economic slump that followed the infamous 1929 stock market crash. And this ad hypes the serialization of a novel by Warner Fabian titled Unforbidden Fruit. Turns out Fabian was a pseudonym for Samuel Hopkins Adams, an investigative journalist and fiction writer. His short story Night Bus was the source material for the classic film It Happened One Night, and 2 of his novels, published under his own name, were also adapted for the screen, that being The Gorgeous Hussy and The Harvey Girls. February 3rd, 1983, we've got 2 from the Oakland Tribune. I kind of go back and forth between the 2 papers. In 1983, The Entity is coming out. Now, the source material was a novel by Frank DeFletta, who had written Audrey Rose. And like Audrey Rose, the novel The Entity is one I can recall seeing in numerous, if not every, bookstore or spinner rack back in the day, but I haven't read it. And the same goes for the film version. I haven't seen it. I do remember some lackluster reviews and hearing indifferent word of mouth around school by the students that had seen it, so, or classmates that had seen it. The director of the entity was Sidney J. Furie, who has had quite the eclectic career, but most of people will probably know his most infamous movie as being Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. Also, Quentin Tarantino used a snippet from Charles Bernstein's score for the film to excellent effect in Inglourious Basterds. It's when, what's her name, Shoshana, is in the restaurant and Hans Lada comes up behind her, and that the assault music for the entity plays as she realizes just who is coming up behind her. Also, February 3rd, 1928, from the newspaper Ad Archive, we have Between You and Me by Harold Bell Wright. Now, this ad is about a column that the popular writer was going to have running in the Tribune. And I did not know this, but between 1902 and 1942, Harold Bell Wright wrote some 19 books, and most of them were bestsellers, although not particularly critically beloved. But he was the first writer to earn $1 million from writing fiction. He was that popular. His second novel, the title of which was The Shepherd of the Hills, was published in 1907 and was a bestseller, and is also credited with turning the city of Branson, Missouri into a tourist attraction. I've been to Branson, Missouri. Small world. He also wrote a science fiction novel titled The Devil's Highway, which was published in 1932. Also, the site of his former home, or one-time home, it looks to be just a field at this point, in Holtville, California, which is located in the Imperial Valley, is historical landmark number 1034, the Tecolote Rancho site. So you can go see there you go. I'm kind of flabbergasted at the stuff I learned going back here. February 4th, 1983, back to the San Francisco Examiner, and Videodrome is opening. Now, this is probably my favorite David Cronenberg movie. Although, it's my second favorite. My favorite is The Brood. Videodrome is second favorite. I have also taken to referring to Videodrome as QAnon, the movie. Not because there is any sort of tangible connection between this 1983 cult classic and the internet conspiracy that radicalized and inflamed people from various walks of life. No, it is more the thematic similarities I see between Max Renn's self-destructive search for information about the mysterious program called Videodrome, and how it warped his perception of reality to the point he became a controllable avatar for powerful forces he never even came close to understanding. Videodrome, whether it was consciously intended or not, is a film about radicalization and delusion. We see the entire story, or the events, solely from Max Renn's viewpoint. So his transition from rather concrete reality to complete empty vessel is just seamless. it's never given contradictory information or exposition. In fact, I think there's a couple of TV prints or TV scenes that kind of expand on that, and Cronenberg wisely cut them from the theatrical print to keep the film more confusing and more hallucinatory. And because this is about losing oneself in another's constructed and contrived presentation of reality, I think it's aged beautifully well into the perception melting and distorting world of the internet and social media. Long live the new flesh, same as the old flesh. February 4th, 1920, San Francisco Examiner again. We have an ad here for Physical Culture magazine. I have no idea what this is. The magazine database at Galactic Central has a quote from Theodore Peterson, who describes the book, this magazine, as the foundation stone of McFadden's sleazy publishing empire. Although a popular health and fitness magazine, yet much condemned by serious medical journals, it published a surprising amount of fiction, to such an extent that in the early 30s, it aped the general monthlies and ran fiction by popular authors like Warwick Deeping and, hey, Harold Bell Wright. There's that name again. Serendipity strikes yet again. February 5th, The Serpent and the Rainbow opens. February 5th, 1988. After the creative misstep that was Deadly Friend, Wes Craven returned to form with this atmospheric and effective horror-adjacent film. I mean, he didn't consider it a horror film, but the studio sure as hell did. Interpretation of the nonfiction book of the same name by Wade Davis. Although, yet again, the studio, this time Universal, insisted that Craven jazz up the scares quotient of the film with some nightmare sequences. While not exactly a huge hit at the box office, it did do modest to effective numbers. Just nowhere near enough to give Craven the industry capital necessary to make something outside of the horror genre. That wouldn't happen for another decade, when he got Scream, and he could do music of the heart. So it goes. February 5th, 1920. Here's an ad for Revelations of a Wife by Adele Garrison, or the next chapter of Revelations of a Wife, titled My Heart and My Husband. Evidently, Adele Garrison had wrote this long-running sequel. It ran from 1915 up until the Great Depression, and was very popular serial with, at one point, 1 million regular readers. Revelations of a Wife told the story of the marital ups and downs of Margaret Madge Graham, an independent-minded former schoolteacher, and her husband Dickie, an artist. So, before the soap operas on TV, there were soap operas in the newspapers. Now we get to February 6th, 1977. The Sentinel is opening. My memories of this movie are as murky as the film's actual narrative. My first memory, I think, is of a static image of the film that was shown during the Science Fiction Film Awards ceremony that was broadcast in 1978, because Close Encounters of Star Wars had come out. So this, I think this was the Saturn Awards. And I remember being really stoked that there was this thing that was for genre movies. That was just 100%. My memory has it that they had been nominated for Best Costume Design, which is an odd thing to remember. No, But when I was watching it again, I noted it said that The Sentinel was nominated for Best Horror Movie. It was up against The Hills Have Eyes, Dogs, Kingdom of the Spiders, and The Little Girl Who Lives Down the Lane. The winner was the very deserving The Little Girl Who Lives Down the Lane. I also know that I first saw The Sentinel on broadcast television, but I think it was on Channel 2. I don't think it aired on a major network because the movie and its subject matter and its presentation was probably a tad too sleazy and off-putting at the time for one of the big three networks. Also not helping was that the movie was not that successful at the box office. It did really modest to low numbers. Universal wanted a hit like The Exorcist or The Omen. It never came close. Even with some minor edits for content and more than likely time, the movie still proved to be unnerving and unsettling, and it traumatized my dad, of all people. To go further down the trivia rabbit hole, in 1979 or 1980, I read a book by Jeffrey Convitz called The Guardian, which turned out to be a sequel to the Sentinel. When I was reading, I was like, hey, Charles Chaser? Wait, this is the Sentinel. He's just, And, but I didn't read The Sentinel itself, the novel, which was the source material for the movie, until 1981 or 82. I do know that when MCA Home Video released the film, I did rent it and watch it, but that was, I think, in the mid to late 80s. Screen Factory released the film on Blu-ray, which I just so happen to own, so I give it an occasional watch. And like every other film directed by Michael Winner, it is blunt, uneven, violent, gross, sexually graphic, and exploitative. This is one movie that, this is one of those movies that will leave its viewers feeling in need of a shower or a cleansing bath. But, I think that's the kind of the point of a genre offering like this. Also, it has a great score by Gil Mel, and it has and the cast is utterly bonkers. The number of recognizable faces, former stars, current stars, and future cult stars. It's incredible the amount of people that are in this movie. All right, last ad of the week, February 6th, 1984, is this ad for the March 1984 issue of Penthouse magazine. Now, the only thing of note about this ad that makes it interesting to this channel is that this issue contained a novelette by a trio of collaborating science fiction authors, Gardner Dozois, Jack Dan, and Michael Swanwick. The novelette is titled Virgin Territory, and if the Internet Speculative Fiction Database is correct, this is the only place that it appeared in print. I have no idea what the story is about, and while it might be on the Internet Archive or Project Gutenberg, or maybe it popped up in an anthology someplace. I don't know, but I'm not going to be tracking it down. It's not this time. I'm not inclined to. And yeah, those are the ads. That was the stuff. As I said about during earlier portions when I was talking about the short stories and the puzzles, I've created videos and I have them scheduled to premiere, not premiere, but just go up at a set time in the coming weeks. At the moment, the plan or my schedule would be on Monday would be a puzzle, on Wednesday would be a short story review, on Friday would be a trail cam video. It's been pretty quiet in the backyard because of the weather and the low temperatures, but it's warming up now, and we've had a couple of rockets go by. Those are the raccoons. I call all raccoons. I call them rocket for obvious reasons. So there should be a video next Friday, and then of course every Saturday morning this stuff of the week will come up. So you're looking at 3 to 4 videos a week, maybe. But there's other things I'm going to be doing and reading and whatnot. So since I finished the June 81 issue of Twilight Zone, I decided that I was going to read one of the saddest issue, which is their June 1989 issue, which is, and the reason I say saddest is because this was the last issue. They closed up shop. I had a subscription, and I got a letter, form letter from that was signed by Carol Serling, Rod Serling's widow, talking about how sales had been as such that, you know, they decided to close it. And the subscription would be completed by the next 2 issues would be of Omni magazine, which was a piss poor substitution for the Twilight Zone. But this is their last issue, so I'm going to be going through and reading the stories and articles and doing reviews and stuff about that. And also I'll be reading, I hope, and I'm planning on doing a flip through of Marvel Comics adaptation of the film version of Edgar Rice Burroughs' The Land That Time Forgot. And the next book from Mount Sudoku that I kind of go, I cycle around. So a book the oldest book I have that has been added to my Goodreads TBR list gets cracked open, and that book now will be the zombie film from White Zombie to World War Z. So that will be followed by maybe, I don't know, there's a collection of books that let's see, on the Goodreads screen they have the 6 most recent books that you added. So I usually pick one of those 6, and then when I pick it, I put a new book in, and then after reading that book, I pick one that hasn't been entered onto the list. I have a whole bookcase here filled with books that I haven't entered into Goodreads. So there's kind of like 3 books I cycle through, which is odd. It's how my brain works. I don't know why. I get into these cycles and whatnot. So the videos they might, depending on reading and such, I might change the short story postings from every Wednesday to every Tuesday and Thursday. Again, this just depends on the story, depends on whether I have anything to say or I want to say anything about it, because there'll be stories that I read and I'll be like, I don't have anything to say about that. That was the case in the June 81 issue. There was 2 Anthony Boucher shorts that I didn't feel compelled to make any kind of commentary on. And the same probably will be for the Weird Women anthology. There's also an anthology I read last year, Dracula, Prince of Darkness. There's stories in here. There's a Richard Lehman story in here I want to do a review of, so that will be forthcoming as well, although I don't know when. And yeah, that's it, folks. That's this week. I'll be talking at you next week, okay? Until next time, stay scary.